Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to be talking about the Crysis Predator Bow. Everybody needs to be familiar with this weapon if you're playing Crysis 3 online because it is deadly and you cannot afford to not know just exactly how this weapon functions and what it's capable of. Chances are you've seen the trailers really showing off the bow and arrow. Clearly it functions like a bow and arrow. You have to pull it back. It has about a second reload time, or a second draw time rather, before it's all the way pulled back. You can fire your arrows before you have pulled them all the way back, but they won't do as much damage. So you really want to do max damage with this weapon. If the arrow is pulled all the way back, it will easily one-shot headshot, and it will go through all of your opponent's armor. A really good thing to do sometimes if you're in close quarters and you manage to pull the bow all the way back is to one-shot a guy. If you don't hit him in the head, you're usually close enough to punch him, and that will take him down. So a shot with the bow, then a quick punch is a good way to eliminate close quarter threats. Some basic tips for operating with the bow, which aren't actually apparent from the start because they don't really tell you how to use it. If you use the melee attack button while your bow is drawn all the way back, it will undraw the bow, so you don't have to fire off your shot once you're drawn all the way back. It's a nice way to save your arrows. Now, to switch between the different arrows you have available, you can hit the X key and manually select which one you want to fire, or you can just hit the same button that switches you to your primary weapon, which generally switches fire modes for you, and that will switch you onto a different arrow. So if you don't want to bring up your X menu, which can be a little bit detrimental if you're in the middle of combat, you can just hit that button. For me, it's the 2 key on the keyboard. Now let's talk about the different kinds of ammunition. At level 1, when you first unlock the bow, you have the composite arrow. This is a standard one-hit kill arrow if you hit him in the head. It's fast, accurate, it's pretty much your bread and butter ammunition that you're going to be using most of the time with this bow. At level 2, which only requires 10 kills with the bow, you unlock thermite arrows. And basically these things explode, so if you hit somebody with them, they are tagged, and it has a 3-second detonation delay. So that's something you actually have to watch out for, because if you shoot somebody with this explosive arrow, they can still kill you. And I've been tagged by them before, and I've killed the guys who have actually shot me with those thermite arrows, and then they've blown up and killed me. And I'm pretty sure they're a guaranteed kill no matter where you hit the guy. As long as you hit him with the thermite arrow, it sticks to him, it explodes in 3 seconds, guaranteed kill. You'll actually get 2 thermite arrows, and I like to sometimes equip them when I first spawn in, because it can be a fun way to sort of start out by shooting off your thermite arrows and getting some easier kills that way. You do have to watch out though for close quarter combat situations where you stick somebody with it and then they kill you. So that's not the situation you want to use it in. Probably medium to long range, while your cloak can be a very good way to use it. Next up, we have the airburst arrow that you unlock at weapon level 4. That's 50 kills with the Predator bow. And these basically are arrows that have explosives on them that detonate within proximity of the enemy. They're pretty interesting. If you fire directly at the enemy, I find that it's a little tricky to get a one-shot kill with them, but people have reported having really good success by shooting these either at the ground or at the ground in groups of enemies. So you can kind of think of them as sort of a splash damage weapon. Games of crash site where you have several guys hanging out on a crash site might be an excellent spot to use the airburst arrow. Lastly, we have the Recon Arrow, which you unlock at weapon level 6. It's a tactical tagging arrow. So basically when you shoot this arrow, it sort of makes what looks like a big EMP blast in a certain radius around it, and anybody within that blast not only gets tagged for your entire team and you, so highlighting their positions all the time, but it will also tag people who are in cloak. This can be particularly useful in maps where you know there's somebody hiding cloak in a certain area, or there's a building with some guys hidden in it, and you can shoot one of these through the window and it will tag them all for you and your teammates. Now, one of the great things about the Predator bow is that you can fire it while in cloak and it won't break your cloak. So this is a good way to try and snipe at targets when you're sort of standing in a shadowy area, not have to worry about running around and dodging shots while you're lining up your shots. This is a great way for going for long range targets and taking your time to really line up the shot and make sure you hit it. Now, being that Crysis is a very fast-paced game and you can't always control what engagements you end up in, you often find yourself in a close quarter engagement with the bow. For these situations, I recommend turning on your armor, unless you have auto armor equipped, and jumping around a lot. Basically, the jump allows you to sort of calculate your trajectory and figure out how you want to line up your shot for the opponent you're fighting. So it can actually be a great way to make yourself a very hard to hit target, and you can line up your arrow for your way down from the fall and often land a lot of shots, surviving many of these encounters. It's a great way to play with the bow. You kind of jump around all over the place and you look a little silly, but it will keep you alive, usually long enough for you to finish off your opponent. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the Predator bow is a difficult weapon to use. It's probably better to pick it on maps that are a little bit more long range than close quarters. You're always going to be kind of outmatched in close quarters with this weapon. So really the ideal situation are darker maps or larger maps that give you a lot of places to sort of hide, go into cloak mode, and line up your targets. It's not how you have to play necessarily, but I really think you can take advantage of just staying alive a lot longer with the bow. If you equip the retriever module so you don't have to run out into the middle of the map to collect your dog tags from your fallen opponents, you really can rank up a lot of kill streaks while using the bow. Now there's plenty of modules that will really complement the bow the best, and you're free to experiment with a lot of them. There's a few builds that I like to use, and I change it up every now and then depending on what I'm working on or feel works well. Auto armor is a good one because it allows you to sort of stay mobile really fast with the bow, and then when you take a shot it'll turn on your armor for you, which does slow you down, but for the time being you can be very fast and mobile. I like that. It's a good all-around option to have. Of course, mobility is nice to keep you a bit faster, so sometimes I'll use retriever, auto armor, and mobility. That's a good one. Sometimes I'll mix it up and throw the hunter module in there. Now what I really like about the hunter module is that it silences your own player's movement. This might not seem like such a big deal, but once you actually use it and you hear how quiet the game is when you're not listening to your own movement sounds, it becomes very easy to pinpoint people that are moving around you or sneaking up. It's kind of crazy how loud you are in your auto suit. So Hunter's great for that, but also having the elongated footstep trails that show you direction and movement of players makes it really easy to track down targets, and you really do kind of develop this hunter mindset while using the bow. Now there's plenty of other builds and modules that you can play around with and really use to change up the playstyle with the hunter bow. I actually really like this weapon. I thought it was going to be totally stupid and gimmicky. It's definitely not easy to use. It requires a lot of practice, but once you get it down you can actually top some servers and some of the leaderboards using this weapon, and you're going to definitely piss off your opponents in the process. So that pretty much concludes my introductory guide to the Predator bow. I'm going to play around with it a lot more to try and just get my skills down and master the switching between arrows and using the right arrow for the right situation. I think that's probably one of the hardest parts of getting good with this bow. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.